Feschuk wrote a piece. Dave Feschuk for the Star caught up with a guy by the name of Jack Hahn, who I believe I'm not sure what he's doing now. He's writing about hockey, the Hockey Tactics newsletter, pretty deep into analytics. He's worked for the Habs. He's worked with the Leafs. Worked with the Marlies. He was on Sheldon Keefe's staff a couple of years ago with the Marlies. And catching up with Feschuk, and he suggested that he is a believer, and I guess he's written about this idea, that you change up your alignment and go with 2 forwards and 3 defensemen. And this wouldn't be permanent, and I don't even think this would be close to the majority of the time. But from time to time in selective situations, you give it a shot. And he said, without speaking to Sheldon Keefe, he did say that, but he went on to say, quote, I would say the likelihood is pretty high that he will give it a shot. I think you'll see some of that this upcoming season. 2 forwards, 3 defensemen. Now, Poulin, you're claiming this is not a new concept throughout the hockey world.
At all. Billy Beanie at Middlebury College in Vermont won, I think, 8 national championships. So if you picture in the late 80s and early 90s when small defensemen were rampant and not being heavily recruited because everybody wanted bigger guys, he found there were so many available that he recruited more of them. So he went with a system that had 2 forwards and 3 D, and then designated D could go up on the play. But it was so different for everybody because you only saw him, a couple times a year, and it was such a different system. And because of the small mobile defenseman now being so critical in the NHL, there's not many of those available. So I think it's interesting that he thinks that with a team who's struggled to find 6 defensemen, that they could find 3 more defensemen or 4 more defensemen to play this.
Well, I guess if you're going to do it permanently as like a game plan, then you'd have to.
What is the idea, Brian? What is it for? What is it supposed to do?
I guess you
haven't explained to me.
It's a soccer strategy that has been used over time. This idea that you don't necessarily need a striker in soccer to be competitive, but if you hold on to the back lines, if you control the puck, if you control the pace of play, and then move up the ice collectively. The idea of having 3 defensively minded players as opposed to 2 would be beneficial. That's again data driven, analytically driven. I don't know. I can't envision it in the hockey world just because I've never seen it. It's pure ignorance from my standpoint. I am curious to see it. I'm curious to see it bear out. I kind of hope Keefe pulls this move out at some point. But I feel like the reaction in a town like this, which is a massive hockey market and does have a lot of progressive hockey thinkers in it, but I've always been of the belief Toronto is a much more old-school hockey town than maybe people think it is. I think people would freak. They'd be like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, it's got to work. I mean, your first reaction is to say, the Tampa Bay Lightning don't use 3 defensemen, and they're pretty damn good, and they're probably favorites to win the next Stanley Cup. Well, if they're not using 3 defensemen, why are you or why do you want to? But I think that would be closed-minded because you're just thinking you're just shutting the door on it. But if you're going to go ahead and try it, but it better work. And if it stinks the joint out, you're not going to have a whole lot of, in this market, you're not going to have a whole lot of runway for it to work. But for me personally, I just like hockey, 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, just work harder, be better. I'm kind of tired of experimental type stuff. Like music and practice and all that nonsense. Just go out there and work. You got enough talent there to win. Work hard. Forget about the funny stuff.
Think about what they do, though, to free up Marner. Where do they bring him in the offensive zone? Up to the middle at the top between the 2 defensemen.
Yeah.
So that's, they're trying to create a different spacing. So in the offensive zone, we saw how many times their 3rd forward came up high between the 2 D and created matchup problems because the other D is covering Marner. He's like, do I go way up there with him? Or how do we turn that off? How do we go cover that forward at the top between the 2 defensemen on the point? So it's that sort of philosophy that drives the offense from the back side. In soccer, it's moving the middle guys back and driving the offense from that side. You'd have to recruit, you'd have to scout and draft totally different. That would be a long-term build of a system.
Other than Brody or Morgan Riley, who would you want the puck in the offensive zone below the dots? Which one of those?
Well,
guys?
This is envisioning that Sandin, that Liljegren, that Mac Hollowell, that the smallish defensemen that they've drafted are going to be players.
Okay,
and
well, I would
inject
prefer
all
on
these guys
just
in the lineup.
I would prefer on just focusing on winning hockey games as opposed to reinventing the way you play the game. No one else has
Agreed.
done it. Like I said,
Agreed.
maybe this works. If this is great, go ahead and win a Stanley Cup with 7 defensemen on the ice and 1 forward. I don't know, but it just sounds goofy to me. I would prefer to focus on winning the normal way, and that might be ignorant, but I don't know. Stop trying to reinvent hockey if this is true.
Well,
that's just my personal opinion.
I think if there was a front office in the league, a coach in the league that would have the ability to do it, it would be Sheldon Keefe. I think Kyle Dubas would fully support giving it a shot. He would look at the data. I think, soccer and hockey parallel each other in a lot of ways in terms of possession, in terms of free-flowing sports. It's not stops and starts. The amount of goals you score, hockey scores a little bit more. But you're not putting up, like in the NBA, 100 points apiece, stops and starts like in the NFL. They mirror each other. And, soccer is further ahead of hockey in terms of this obsession on possession and where you have the ball, where you have the puck, how you can move as a unit, and how you might be able to benefit from that. But I'm not sure a lot of coaches in the league would be able to pull this off because I think their GM would call down and say, what the hell do you think you're doing? I think Sheldon Keefe would get the green light if he felt like it could work, if it was the right circumstance. It might have to be a blowout win or a blowout loss where you try it just to get a feel for it. But
you have to have the personnel to try it. I mean, you totally have to change your personnel within a game. You'd have to dress totally different guys to try it. You'd only be dressing 8 forwards.
Right.
I think a team like Carolina could give it a shot. They've got like 7D that are real good skaters, that are real capable, they're offensive mind. I don't know. I don't know. Personally, I think it's goofy. I actually think it's goofy. Maybe I'm not looking. Maybe I'm not smart enough. I don't know. Well,
you're talking about it when I introduced Middlebury. I'm talking about there's 60 Division I teams. This is a small Division III New England college that did something because it had to do something different to attract the players to its program. It's a great school and a small school, and it wasn't an NHL team that competes at the highest level that we're talking about here. I just referenced that it had been done before.
Well, I could see the Leafs potentially also looking at their salary cap and saying, we have so much invested in 4 forwards, let's only play 2 of them. Let's play Marner and Matthews and then Tavares and Nylander, and all we need is about, 4 more forwards, and we can basically spread the love around on the back end. But I don't think they're going to come close to jumping into the pool like this and just saying the final 40 games, this is what we're going to do. I think it would be testing it out in certain circumstances. Could you see a situation late in the game where you're up a goal and you feel more confident with 3 defensemen on the ice as opposed to 2? And I'm not sure that's the nature of what they're talking about here.
That'd get pretty confusing too for people.
That's another thing, but would you have more faith in those players? Would you have more faith in that setup? Are your players going to buy into it? Because that's another thing. Like if you're suggesting like, okay, we're going to complement the back end, we're going to try to bolster the back end, and we're going to focus more on the possession and basically keeping it out of our own net and moving it up the ice. Is it going to take away from scoring opportunities? Like is Austin Matthews going to buy in, or is he going to say, I'm not here to look at this stuff. Like I'm put that second winger on my line. I want to score 50. And this just feels like it would be such a drastic change to the nature of the sport. It would drag it closer to soccer. Lower scoring games, more possessionally driven.
Which isn't what they want.
And I have no interest in that personally. Yeah, like I have no interest in that personally.
This is a statement made by someone who was with the organization for 3 years, is no longer with them, and is making a statement from the outside, maybe about a conversation that went on at some point.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this.
I'm with you.
Well, it's something that he clearly promotes, and he's written about it, and he, I think, likes the idea, and he admits. I just gave you the quote. He said, "I haven't spoken directly to Sheldon, but I wouldn't be surprised." I'm sure they've brought it up before. I'm sure these guys talk about a number of different things.
Absolutely.
Poul, you've been in the room, it's.
I'd see more apt. I'd see the Leafs be more apt to go with 4 forwards and 1 defenseman.
Right.
The way they're built. 3. Yeah, I mean that's where their money is. Put them on the ice as often as you can and as much as you can in an offensive situation.